Hi there, welcome to Kneppy Invest. Megaport, we'll take a look at that company's Appendix 4C today. They released their quarterly report on the 20th of July. It was met by the market with enthusiasm, share price up 23%, which is a little bit different, just a little bit different than their March quarter results. In fact, when they released those results, the market set the share price down a significant amount. On fears, the company had or was slowing their growth down, and maybe those fears were a little bit premature based off these quarterly results. Now, I've been following Megaport for about 6 years, and I've always wanted to own this company. I've never really found the opportunity to own it, and there is an argument that says maybe not being patient in these sort of situations can be beneficial. But then again, I was patient when I saw the share price get up above $20. I thought, still want to own this company, but I'm going to wait to see if there's any sell-off in the future. And there was that significant sell-off, really based off the last two Appendix 4Cs. And we saw share price get down to as low as $5 at one point in time. But I was wanting some confirmation because the share price could decrease for a while. I wanted to see if this slowing growth trend was continuing, just because one quarter does not make a trend. And I think that has been confirmed in this particular quarter. So I have taken a position in Megaport. Now, sometimes when a company releases some positive news, like this Appendix 4C, I will wait a while. But I decided to take a position in Megaport on the 20th of July, towards the end of trading. Now, initially, when I saw this report, I put in a bid at $7. I think the share price was something like $6.30 the previous day. The share price opened above $8. I think maybe about $8. It went to high about $8.50, pulled back, and I took a position at $8 near the close. Whether that's a good buying price remains to be seen, but I do think this has the potential to go significantly higher from here. This has all the traits I'm looking for in the company, except a few things, and those few things have to do with profitability. Profitability will come for this company. And one of the most important things, they were EBITDA positive in this particular quarter, the first EBITDA positive quarter this company has experienced. So I think everything is moving in the right way for this company, and that is the reason why I've taken a position. And the sell-off of Megaport over the past 6 months has really helped in that as well. So let's get into Megaport, but it's been a very interesting 6 months for this company. So let's have a look at what happened in April when they released their March quarter results. And this was the title of my video in April when they released their March quarter results. Share price down 30%. That wasn't in one day. In fact, that was over a 2-day period. Share price was down about 20% on the day they released their Appendix 4C. Share price actually closed at $9. And then the share price kept on dropping. In fact, it went from $9 to below $5. We had seen the share price actually bounce over the past month once it reached its low, which would have been towards the end of June. And with the share price increasing, finishing at about $8 on the 20th of July, we are seeing a possible shift in sentiment, a possible shift in trend. The one thing we're going to have to be careful with, well, not careful with, but the one thing the share price has to overcome is all those shareholders who bought in higher prices, who now have seen the share price rise and will want to sell out. So there will be resistance moving forward for Megaport and its share price. However, there was some really good buying on the 20th, and no doubt there's going to be some good buying today because the American markets were up, and I think that will translate to our markets unless the American futures start going down and there's bad results, because we are also in quarterly results season for the United States companies. So things are looking good for Megaport at this point in time, but the one thing that could drive the share price down from here is return to overall negative sentiment in the market. We have seen a little bit of a rally after those big down, I think it was a big down week in June. This was to our expectations. So at this point in time, I think taking a position at these prices was, particularly if you are a long-term investor, and I want to hold this company for the long term. I believe in 10 years' time, this will be a significantly bigger company, and I'm not caring if the trend is down and goes down from here. I might add to my position if the share price halves from here, because I think the share price will be significantly higher in 10 years' time. So in that regard, I am a long-term investor for Megaport. This is not a company I want to own just because of the trend, because the trend could shift at any time, just like we saw on the 20th of July. And this was the chart on the day I last did a video. In fact, I did that video 2 days after they released their Appendix 4C. And the downtrend in Megaport's share price really began towards the end of 2021. We saw the share price reach a high of $22 in December last year. And then when they released their December Appendix 4C in January, share price fell 16% on that day. So that was the catalyst behind the shift in sentiment and the shift in trend of the share price for this company. And then, of course, when they released their March Appendix 4C, share price fell 20% on the day, and then another 10% the next day. And the next day, the share price actually closed at $9. So the previous day actually finished at $10. So share price that day dropped from about $12.25 to $10. During the period between the December quarter Appendix 4C and the March quarter Appendix 4C, share price was trading between about $15 and $12.50. During that whole period, I was wanting to buy some shares in the company, but because the shares were in a downtrend at that point in time, I held off, and I wanted some confirmation that their business had been turning around. And the very fact that the market sold off because of the March quarter Appendix 4C and fears the growth in the company was slowing, that held me off from taking a position after the March quarter Appendix 4C, because that again, I wanted that confirmation that that downtrend in growth of the company, or the lack of growth in the company, was just a one-off. And I think with the results of the June quarter, that has been confirmed that that was just a one-off, and the market was overreacting. So what does Megaport do, for those who don't know? So this was founded in 2013 by Bevan Slattery, and his aim was to create an SDN, which is a software-defined networking-based platform that gave customers access to elastic interconnection services, aligning those network services to cloud-based models. So a lot of that goes over my head, but his vision was to give customers greater simplicity, control, and choice over how they connected to and between the services, applications, providers, and networks they needed for their businesses. The best way I look at Megaport is Megaport enables customers to rapidly and flexibly connect to its partner data services, cloud service providers, network service providers, and managed service providers, collective known as the ecosystem. So Megaport was founded by Bevan Slattery, and I would say he's one of the most popular names in investing circles. A few times over the past 3 years, whenever Bevan Slattery has taken position in a company, we have seen share price of that company go through the roof. I'm thinking Pointera, and there's a few other companies, definitely Pointera. We saw share price react just because Bevan Slattery took a position in that company. So Bevan Slattery is a non-executive chairman of Megaport, company listed in December 2015, and we have seen significant growth in this company since then. We'll look at the cash receipts history later in the video. You'll be able to see that trend, and that is one of the things I am looking for in companies I want to invest in, particularly companies that are not profitable yet. I want to see significant growth in their revenue or their cash receipts. Current CEO is Vincent English. He's been in that role since 2017, and there is a little bit of skin in the game. Bevan Slattery has 5.1%. CEO has 1.1%. Now the market cap. So in November 2021, the share price was $20.60, which gave the market cap of this company $3.2 billion. Current share price, $7.96. That was at the end of closing on the 20th of July. Share price has been below, I think, $5 at a low, but at $7.96, the market cap is $1.25 billion. So some people would argue, particularly those who are looking for value, and they're looking for companies that do actually are profitable, this is the sort of company that wouldn't be on their radar just yet. So this company is for those investors that are looking for significant growth in the company. They don't really care if a company is profitable just yet, because they believe the path to profitability is there. And eventually, when this company does become profitable, it will increase its profits significantly over time, sort of like Xero. But I think Megaport right now is a pretty good value compared to Xero. So market cap of $1.25 billion for a company that is not profitable but is growing its top line fairly quickly is an attractive proposition, because I do think eventually Megaport will become profitable. And when it does become profitable, we're going to see those profits really take off, exponentially grow. Anyway, so that's one of my theses behind this company. And the ticker for Megaport is MP1. Before we have a look at the June quarter results for financial year 22, I just want to go back in time to last year's June quarter results for financial year 21, just to see how Megaport has grown over the past year, or performed, or not grown at all. So the things we're looking at here is receipts from customers. We want to see that growing, and also whether the company is operating cash flow positive, negative, or even operating cash flow neutral. In fact, in this particular quarter, I'll probably call Megaport operating cash flow neutral. They provided $23.2 million in receipts from customers, and were only operating cash flow negative by $202,000. But if you have a look at the year to date, which gives you the year-long picture, receipts to customers $87.5 million, but they were operating cash flow negative by $12.8 million. So that's a big number. So if they continue being operating cash flow negative by that amount, they're going to have to continually raise cash. So not only were they operating cash flow negative in this particular quarter and for the year, this company does spend a lot of money in capital expenditure and IP. In this quarter, those two costs amounted to $6.6 million. So capital expenditure could be for growth or maintenance, and intellectual property, if I remember correctly, is all about research and development. So they do spend a lot of money in those investing activities or financing activities. They also received almost $1 million in the exercise of options. So altogether, even though they were operating cash flow neutral, they did burn through about $5 million of cash. But you can see the cash on hand at the end of this particular quarter, $136.3 million. So they have a lot of cash to play with moving forward. Now let's see how the company has performed over the past year, focusing first on cash receipts. And we want to see cash receipts growing through time. And from last year, cash receipts are up $8.3 million. So they're growing about 33% from last year. Another thing to keep a lookout for is how costs are growing or not growing. For instance, product manufacturing operating costs actually down compared to last year, down 1.3 million, but staff costs up 5.7 million and administration costs up 1.9 million. So altogether, receipts were growing quicker or are growing quicker than the cost, which means the company in this particular quarter were operating cash flow positive by $1.6 million. The next thing you look at is the year to date, just like we did last year. So even though receipts grew significantly from last year, up to $116 million, the company was actually more operating cash flow negative in this particular year, $16.4 million of cash burned just in operations. And also keep in mind, they spent a lot in capital expenditure and IP. In this particular quarter, they spent $5.4 million in capital expenditure and $4 million in IP. So even though the company was operating cash flow positive, they burned through $6.3 million cash and finished the quarter with $82.5 million. So significantly less money or cash on hand than last year, but still a long run rate of cash burn they can go through until they will have to do a capital raising. Now to the receipts history for Megaport, and this is very impressive. This goes all the way back to 2016, the December quarter actually of 2015, when they received only $540,000 of receipts. And they have grown receipts from $540,000 to $31.6 million. So that's a very impressive growth through the last 6.5 years. At one point in time, I could have argued that receipts were growing exponentially. If we go back to 2019 and 2020, it looked like they were, particularly if you look at the December quarter 2020, we had receipts of $25.8 million. And if you ignore the next 6 quarters, it did look like receipts were starting to grow exponentially. But it does look like they are growing at a linear rate. Receipts now above $30 million, $31.6 million. So the trend is up. And that's the main thing with receipts. This company is growing and growing at a fairly impressive rate. The main concern coming out of the March quarter of Megaport or for Megaport was the question about whether the growth was slowing for the company. And one quarter does not make a trend. So we want confirmation whether the trend is setting up. So we need at least 2 quarters and preferably 3 or 4 quarters before we can confirm a trend. Is the growth slowing for Megaport? So in this particular slide, I'm comparing the performance metrics of the 3rd quarter, the March quarter, to the 4th quarter, the June quarter, the quarter we just had. And we're going to be comparing MRR, revenue. MRR is monthly recurring revenue, customers. We also can compare total ports, VXCs, MCRs, and MVEs. We'll just compare MRR, revenue, and customers. So in the March quarter, MRR only increased 3% quarter on quarter, revenue 5%, customers 4%. Now let's have a look at the June quarter growth in those three metrics. MRR up to 13% quarter on quarter, revenue 10%, and customers again at 4%. So when you do compare the fourth quarter to the third quarter, definitely there is not a trend here that we can confirm that growth is slowing. And that's why the market has reacted positively to the June quarter results, because those fears around the third quarter growth is slowing question, I think now are thrown out the window. Now to the daily chart for Megaport. This goes back to November last year, just before the share price reached a high of $22. You can see the share price went from that high of $22 all the way to a low just below $5 towards the end of June. We did see a nice little bounce in the share price from that low below $5 to about $7 just before the company released their Appendix 4C, and then the share price popped up on the release of this quarterly report. Now, one of the things I do look for is when a company does release this sort of a positive report, I want to see at least a 6-month high. The reason I'm looking for at least a 6-month high is all about resistance, because there would have been a lot of shareholders who bought in between November, even before that, and May of this year at higher prices. And now a lot of these shareholders, not all of them, but a lot of these shareholders, because the share price dropped after they bought in, automatically think Megaport is a dog stock. And what they're waiting for is the share price get back up to when they bought in, and that's their trigger point to sell. So there's going to be a lot of resistance moving forward for Megaport, even if there is positive sentiment, positive trend in the share price. That's why sometimes share price of a company can increase at a much slower rate than it decreases. So I am looking out for, because I think this could be the catalyst for a shift in sentiment. The next thing I'm going to look for is a shift in the trend in the share price. We don't quite have that yet. We need some more positive momentum in the share price, preferably on pretty good volume. Share price gets up to, say, about $15. That's when we're starting to look at least a 6-month high. So a long way to go before we get there. So I think the main thing here is we don't want to see further weakness in the overall markets. That could send the share price down. And we don't want to see any negative news from the company. Not sure we will see that. There's no reason why we will say that, because this was a positive report. So I think there is a lot of potential the share price will increase from here in the short to medium term. In the long term, talking about 5 to 10 years, I think without doubt, and when I say without doubt, I'm not talking about 100% likelihood, I'm pretty high chance that Megaport share price will be higher than it is right now. And that's one of the reasons I've taken a position in Megaport right now. That's all I have for this June quarter Appendix 4C video for Megaport. Share price rose 23% on the back of this announcement. The market really liked it. And the fear of the growth slowing for Megaport is now, I think, can be confirmed to be unfounded. And I think there is only blue sky ahead for Megaport, well, in the next 5 to 10 years. In the short term, who knows what's going to happen with the share price. Share price could go back to $4.50. Who knows, particularly if there is overall weakness in the market. So if you do have any questions, any thoughts, any opinions on Megaport, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So leave it in the comment section of this video. Otherwise, I'm not a financial advisor. If you do need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.